Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family.
All right. So here I am in Little Wood End in Victoria with my colleague and friend Jose Ramos, Dr. Jose Ramos. We're trying something new here. We're actually going to do the interview in a coffee shop. We've got a swan and storm something behind us. Little.
No, it's a black swan, which I think is a significant metaphor to begin with.
It's a great metaphor to begin with.
So,
Of
can see the
course,
black swan.
you're all going to rush off and get Taleb's book,
Yeah.
The Black Swan. In fact, I'll make a chapter of that available to you as part of this interview. Now, I've grabbed Jose because he's just in the very last stages of editing a really interesting book, co-editing with Barat.
Yeah. Adahia.
Yeah, a book on cosmolocalism, which is, very much related to our work on global citizenship. And so I've got two questions for Jose, same sort of formula. I'm going to be monitoring the time, so because of course this sort of stuff we can talk about for ages. My first question for Jose is this concept of cosmolocalism. How do you see that related to the concept of global citizenship?
Yeah, well, first I think we have to talk about what is cosmolocalism. So if I can just take a minute to define it. So cosmolocalism is the idea that you have an emerging planetary commons of ideas. So all around the world, people are producing ideas. Some of those ideas actually become designs or even formulas. So people might be producing malaria drugs, and they make them open for others to replicate. Some people might be creating designs for 3D printed objects, and they keep that open as well. Some people might be producing ideas for water saving devices. So what we see is this kind of global sphere of knowledge, and people are pulling that knowledge together. And then on a geographic basis, where people are, this is a localism bit, people can use that planetary pool of knowledge, and they can do something locally. So for example, there's an organization called WikiHouse, and they have a community of people from all over the world who basically design open source houses. You can take their designs; they're very well documented. You can put the wood through a CNC router and out the other end in your local region. You can put the house together.
Yep.
Right. So it's an example where you have this global sphere of knowledge, and you have particular organizations like WikiHouse potentiating what people can do on the ground.
Yep.
And so there's about we've documented about 40 examples in the Cosmolocal reader. And they're pretty in-depth examples of people taking something which is open knowledge, and everything from agricultural products such as organic farm instruments. There's an organization in the Northeast of the United States called Farm Hack, and another one Farm Hack, and another one called L'Atelier Paysans in France. So the relationship between that and global citizenship, well, I mean, I think first of all, we want to be able to play a positive role in our work. And so global citizenship is about being able to take responsibility for the and have some power in shaping positive outcomes for our whole world. And I think a lot of times when we think about what can we do, what can I do, it feels hard because we're physically embodied. I live here in Central Victoria. What can I do in Central Victoria, which is going to have any impact around the world, right? Okay, well, do I have to become a prime minister or, foreign secretary? Do I need to, okay, well, maybe I join Greenpeace and do some campaigning, right? This provides another avenue for, in academic terms, agency, for the power of an individual to have an impact. We can actually create ideas, we can create designs, and if we keep them open source, it potentiates people all around the world to solve their own problems. And what we do in that is we create a virtuous cycle. Let's say I want to do organic, regenerative agriculture here in Central Victoria, and I have a team doing new farm instruments. But we're going to keep that open. We're going to show the world what we're doing. We're going to document it. We're not going to patent it. We're not going to keep it locked down. We're going to say we want to learn from other people. We want you to learn from us. And then other people.
Very different model.
It's a different model to that Western intellectual property model, which is I am the inventor. I came up with this idea. It's mine. And if you use my idea, I want the royalties, right? Unless I'm dead, in which case
Your kids get it.
yeah, the kids get it, or there's what is it? What's the name of that? After 50 years or something, it goes into the public.
Oh, yeah, the common domain,
Yeah.
public domain.
So this model gives people an opportunity to experiment, to produce ideas and designs, and to have them used by other people around the world. There's two key reasons, or two key focus, I think. One is livelihoods. So can we potentiate a livelihood revolution around the world? So can people who are struggling with poverty in different parts of the world draw from global pools of knowledge to do things in their local environments, which increase their livelihood? So I think that's one. And two, can we address our climate crisis through this strategy as well? So can we learn how to draw down our carbon emissions by learning from all over the world? Or can we produce things that are low carbon and make it widely available? So it's about accelerating the capacity of global social learning, fundamentally. Yeah.
Okay, which is of course really the heart of global citizenship. Yeah, really interesting. I mean, you've already given us you've touched on some examples, which leads me to the second question for you. I think it's really important in our, particularly this era that we're living in, to find hope and meaning in things. What gives you hope?
Yeah, I mean, the way that I've been able to think about time, I think, it's this idea of temporality. So I think that's something that we're grappling, for example, with the climate crisis. The climate crisis is an expression of humans having changed their climate. But it's also an expression of, okay, well, the last 10,000 years, we've been developing civilizations. We've been living in a period called the Holocene, this period of relatively stable climate, right? Damn good weather, you might say. And we're generating changes to that. Before that, we've been anthropologists say we've been a species for about 200 to 300,000 years. And when we think of the grand scope of time, what we're experiencing now is the need to manage the planetary atmospheric commons for the survival of the species and for other species that we also depend on. And the shift from, being, either individualistic or tribalistic or nationalistic or, ethnocentric, groupistic, whatever, to that, oh, actually, we need to all kind of figure this thing out. That's a big cognitive shift, a big shift in identity. It's a big shift in, what it means to be a human being. And yet, we all came from Africa. The biologists say, the evolutionary biologists say, we're all human beings, right? With a few other sub-variant species thrown in, a bit of Neanderthal, a bit of Denisovan, yeah, bit of this, a bit of that. But generally, we are, we are a species. So, so the science points back to this unitary notion of what it means to be a human being. This, in a sense, pre-fragmentation reality. And then even other narratives, when we go back to the birth of the cosmos, all of the reason why we have carbon in our bodies, the reason why we have all these different complex atoms, because they were cooked in suns. They were cooked in suns, became supernovas, exploded, became new stellar nurseries, new suns, new supernovas. This cycle's gone on for billions of years. We are literally stardust. So if you go back in time, the idea of individual identity, the idea of tribal identity, national identity, ethnic identity, begins to get a bit fuzzy. It begins to break down. And when we see that and this goes back to this you were talking about trauma a second ago. Trauma is a fundamental human experience, and it's why we become identities. We become identities because we decide this is who we are, and we need to protect our bodies. Whether our bodies are physical bodies, whether they're group bodies, whether they're nationalistic bodies. And so we inherit these traumas that form identities. China experienced 100 years of humiliation, it says, because of colonialism. Right? So it has a body, and it protects that body. And so the tension and the duality is that we are these identities that are holding this trauma, and yet we're being called into a bigger space. This space of actually we're planetary beings among the cosmos of cosmic beings. And we're being asked to manage the planetary commons together.
Sure.
And this is the great cognitive epistemological shift that I'm really experiencing.
So to close, how about giving us an example, a really concrete example of something that could be one of the case studies in your book that will help students appreciate the kind of often stuff that goes underneath that we don't hear about, but is really hopeful, a hopeful evolutionary.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So this is all about hacking. And I draw a lot of inspiration from your work, Marcus, in terms of the cultural hacking. Well, there's a project called Solar Urja in Maharashtra in India, and it was a collaboration between IIT Bombay, NGOs, and the government. And what they wanted to do is address the issue of the use of kerosene for heating and lighting in villages. Kerosene is very dirty. It's carbon intensive. It's a health risk, both for lungs and for fires. And it's expensive, right? So there's a whole number of reasons, but people don't have an alternative, right? And so they come up with the idea of, let's take open source hardware to develop solar lamps. Not just that, but they created a simple solar lamp. Said, well, the villagers are not going to be able to fix it when it breaks. Okay, let's develop repair centers where we teach the villagers how to repair these solar lamps. Let's create an economy, and they'll get paid. Someone comes in, they get paid a small amount to fix the solar lamps. But hold on a second, we're still dependent on these solar panels. Let's create a cooperative run by Adivasi, by indigenous people.
Indigenous.
Indians who, and they're gonna produce the panels. And they created this ecosystem in Maharashtra where they're producing the panels that are producing the solar lamps that are replacing the the kerosene lamps in villages. When they break down, they go back to a repair center. And someone there is actually getting paid to keep those, right? Reducing carbon, eliminating the health impacts, eliminating the cost impacts. And it's been rolled out to over 1 million people in India. Of course, a million people, that's 1/10 of Australia's population, but it's 1/1000 of India's population, right? So but still, you have to, that's more than a prototype, I'd say. That's beyond prototype.
That's right. No, it's,
Yeah.
as a, the thing is that we tend to only think in scale, and we've got to think cross scale.
Yeah,
And I think that's really, really important. That's another point in their course, so we can end there.
yeah,
With, thanks so much
yeah, no worries.
for those insights. And I'm really hoping that the ambient noise has made that it hasn't really got in the way. Otherwise, I'll be on the phone to you, Jose. Can we do this again?
And enjoy the black swans of your future.
Yeah, let's get out of the way. There you go. So we'll end there. And thank you so much, Jose.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
No worries.
Yeah.